Okay, so here we are, ready for the next lesson, and we are going to be looking at the Pythagorean identity for trig. All right, so since each point of the unit circle must satisfy the equation x squared plus y squared equals 1, now we can state what is known as the Pythagorean identity. So we know that the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, that's just the Pythagorean theorem that we all know and love. Okay, so now we're going to look at the Pythagorean identity. We know in the unit circle, okay, the A and the B, so we have the unit circle here, right? And everything is, that's 1, 1, -1, and -1. We know that if we were to draw any triangle within that, right, it would be x squared plus y squared equals 1 squared, or just 1. So we kind of already did this last time, but we just didn't call it the Pythagorean identity. Okay, so that is just using the unit circle. Well, the last time we found out that within the unit circle, the x is the same as the cosine, and the y is the same as the sine in the unit circle. So now we have the Pythagorean identity, which states that the cosine squared plus the sine squared is always equal to 1. Okay, so if we're given the cosine, which is really our x coordinate, right, and we're given that the y is negative, okay, so we know that the y is negative, but we really don't know exactly what it is, but that's what we want to find out. We're going to go ahead and use the Pythagorean identity. Since we know that the cosine of the angle squared plus the sine of that angle squared is equal to 1, we know that 3/5 squared plus the sine squared is equal to 1. So we're just going to do the math. Okay, this is 9/25 plus the sine squared equals 1. Subtract 9/25 from both sides, and we get the sine squared is equal to 16/25. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides, and we get the sine is equal to plus or minus 4/5. However, it's telling us that the sign is negative, which helps us know which quadrant it's in. So that's going to be -4/5 is our answer. Okay, so this is just the sign being negative is just an indication of which quadrant it's in. Okay, so here we have if a terminal ray of B, angle B, lies in the fourth quadrant, so we're given what the quadrant is, and we're looking at the sine of B is negative the square root of 3/3. Determine the exact value of the cosine of B in simplest form. And you may hear my dog in the background. He's making kind of weird noises as he's rolling all over the place. Okay, but anyway, so we know that the cosine squared plus the sine squared is equal to 1. So we don't know what the cosine is yet, but we do know that negative square root of 3/3 squared equals 1. And now, again, we're just going to do the math. Negative times a negative, or a negative squared, is positive. So this is going to come out to be a positive. And then the square root of 3 squared is just 3. And then 3 squared is 9. Okay, well, we can reduce that to 1/3. Okay, subtract 1/3 from both sides, and we get the cosine of B is equal to 2/3. That's squared. Now taking the square root of both sides, we get the cosine of B is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2 over the square root of 3. But remember, now the square root of 3 cannot be in the denominator because it is not It is not a irrational. It is an irrational number, not a rational. So we need to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by, my dog is, and he's like 80 pounds, is on my lap and moving the pen for me. So be aware of that. Okay, so we're going to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, and we get plus or minus the square root of 6 over 3. However, it says that it's in the fourth quadrant. So we need to look and see in the fourth quadrant, right, which is here, we have a positive and negative. So the cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant, and the sine is negative in the fourth quadrant. So the final answer is going to be negative square root of 6 over 3. Okay, last question. Given the function f of x equals 6 times the sine of x, find the exact value of f of 60 degrees. Well, I'm just going to plug in the sine of 60 degrees in here. Okay, so we need to know what the exact value of the sine of 60. If you put that in your calculator, you're going to get an irrational number. So that's not going to work. We need the exact value. Okay, and it even asks for the exact value. So here's where I go back and make my 60-degree right triangle. Okay, so this is 60, so it's a 30, 60, 90. It's in the first quadrant. Okay, and the sine of 60, the sine is the opposite side. So that's radical 3 over 2 over 1, right? Or you just know that the sine is the y coordinate. So if you were looking at this would be 1/2, and this would be radical 3 over 2. So this would be 1/2 radical 3 over 2. You didn't really have to do all that extra work if you know that the sine is opposite. So now we have 6 times radical 3 over 2, and that's going to be equal to f of 60. Okay, well, when you multiply that out, 2 goes into 6 3 times, so you're going to get 3 radical 3 as your final answer. That is the exact value. Okay, so now you can go ahead and do, there's, I think, 3 practice problems. You can go ahead and do that now.